Auburn added 5 defensive linemen this offseason via the transfer portal. Philip Blidi will make the largest impact in 2024.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me as he does every single Tuesday for a little Charlie Tuesday action. Auburn Message Board legend Charlie5, also host of the Top Button Podcast, hanging out with us. We'll jump into our main topic today in just a moment. Just a quick update for if you somehow missed this. Hugh Freeze put out a note, as well as the Auburn football program putting out a note that Brian Batty, the Auburn running back who was shot this past weekend, to use Coach Freeze's words, took a turn for the worse, I believe is exactly what he said. And he's on a ventilator at the time of us recording this. So continue to pray for Batty, for Brian and his family. I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine what that family is going through. So thoughts and prayers to him. Sure. As far as our topic today, Auburn has added 5 defensive linemen. We're including Keyron Crawford in this, the edge rusher from Arkansas State. Of those 5, to me, Philip Blidi is the one I expect to have the largest impact on the 2024 season. Charlie5.
I'm with you 1,000%. I think he plays the most snaps, number one. He's got a little bit more versatility than a couple of the guys. He's not just kind of keyed in like an Isaiah Raikes is that true nose tackle position. He can play. He can maybe even slide a little bit outside, play a little bit inside. Got a ton of experience. Holy cow. If you talking about the line as a whole, we have to be the most experienced returning defensive line is from a snaps perspective, definitely in the SEC, maybe even in the country, and not just transfers with the guys here. You got Jason Jones that's got a ton of snaps, Keldrick Falk that played a lot last year, and then Philip Blidi. I think I'm with you. He's going to slide in. I think he's going to be the starter out of that group and make the biggest impact.
Yeah, really interested to see who all plays where. Jason Jones has come on the show a bunch to talk about that. But Blidi, to me, we heard Gage Keys kind of come on towards the end of spring. I believe he started 8A and it was with the ones consistently that 3 technique. I think Blidi hops him in the depth chart, but then that kind of gives you some flexibility where, okay, if Keldrick needs a strong side defensive end, you're able to possibly scoot out Blidi, or, maybe Amaris Williams can take that step that he needs because he is very gifted and very talented. But as far as impact, yeah, I think Blidi is a transfer portal addition on the defensive front that I think is going to make a huge impact. And I don't think he's going to be flashy about it. I think he's going to be just absolutely steady and make the right decision consistently over and over and over again. And that's what you want from your defensive lineman. And we've talked about this before. The addition of DJ Durkin, I think, benefits one position more than all the others, and that's linebacker.
Sure.
And when you look at these interior defensive linemen, whether it's Jason, we'll talk more about Raikes in a little bit, and then obviously Philip Blidi, those are the guys who are going to keep those interior offensive linemen from blocking the linebackers. And that's the stuff that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. But when you watch tape the next day and you see, or you read the stats and you say, wow, Eugene Asante had 12 tackles on Saturday. How in the world did he do that? It's because guys like Philip Blidi, we think, are going to gobble up those blocks and allow the guys around him to be better, because that's what great defensive linemen do.
You're not going to see him jump off the stat sheet. He's not going to be a stat stuffer, but you don't need him to be. You don't need him to be. You just need him to, like you said, know what his assignment is, be able to execute it, and let your Keldrick Falks make your plays. Let your Jalen McLeods get after the quarterback. Let these linebackers be able to run free. That's what you need these guys to be able to do. That's what we were worried about from a depth perspective, that we'd be able to even do, be able to hold the point of attack at all. And you don't have to have Philip Blidi have an All-American season. You just need him to be steady and control his gaps and execute his assignments. And I think he's going to do that.
And that's what he's been at the other places that he's been. right? When you look at what he did at Texas Tech and then at Indiana, the guy's just been steady. And that's exactly what Auburn needs. That's what they needed post spring, because I think they've got high ceiling guys. They're all just 18.
Yeah,
they've got the ceiling, and like with Malik Blockton, and he's going to get reps over the course of the season. I think Philip Blidi brings stability to a defensive line room that I think without some of these transfers would have really high highs this season and really low lows. But you don't overachieve as a football program by playing that way on the defensive line. That is not the position group where you can do that. I think you could do that with your corners and maybe your DBs and maybe some positions on offense. You win and lose football games in the trenches. And so you need consistency, and you need guys who know what it takes to play at a solid level of college football. And I don't think Philip Blidi is an NFL player. He could be. I think he's going to have to get better at a few things. And one of those is probably a pass rush and creating penetration and wreaking havoc in the backfield. We didn't see him do that a whole lot at Tech or at Indiana. But maybe he takes that step forward, and boy, wouldn't that be great? He would, we have him number one on this list for a reason. That's really not it. But man, if he were able to kind of excel in that regard too, and kind of do what Marcus Harris did a year ago, I just don't think he's that kind of player. But as far as making this defense better, Philip Blidi is the top of this list.
Another thing before we move on, Jason Jones is always seeming to have to be the second guy. He's always had to be the guy that does the dirty work. He's never been the guy to be able to go get back there and make plays. And now I think Philip Blidi could be sort of the Jason Jones of this line, where I do this, the not fun, the hard, the tough work. And
sure,
what does it look like if Jason Jones is able to have some freedom and take the way he's reshaped his body this offseason and be able to get back there and be disruptive and be explosive? That's another element that we haven't really seen yet. He's had to sort of be the team player and do the dirty work. And now he may get to actually get out there and wreak some havoc. So just so many aspects that you can look at that Philip Blidi brings to this room to make really everybody better.
Yeah, can he do enough to demand a presence where you can kind of put guys on the outside in one-on-one situations? I don't know. Probably not day one, but can he have a good enough first month of the season? Can he light it up in September, where by the time you're at the end of it, when you're playing Oklahoma, who I'm not a believer in their offensive line, can he make as much of an impact where it's like, okay, it's going to be him versus a guard consistently over the course of a game, one-on-one, because I think Jalen McLeod, and we'll talk about Crawford in a second, and Keldrick Falk, and we'll see if Williams can take that step forward as a freshman. Can he, in pass rushing situations, assuming they keep him on the field, which I guess they would, unless they want to scoot some guys in, which they may want to, we'll see. Can he consistently win these one-on-one battles if he's asked to do so against these guards and these other interior offensive linemen that they're going to see week in and week out in the conference? I don't know. But if he wants to go to the NFL, which I'm sure is on his mind, this is his last year of eligibility, he's got a family, that's what he's got to do. That's what he's got to do. And I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying he hasn't done it consistently yet, but he has made the guys around him better consistently.
And he's going to have the stage to do it this year. So I'm fired up, and I love him as the most important addition of this offseason.
I thought you were just going to say I love him and stop.
I do love him.
Same. I'm there with you. Okay, coming up, I think Keyron Crawford, I think he could just flat out change this defense. We'll talk about him next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Charlie5, can you imagine hiring anyone and not using LinkedIn Jobs?
Won't do it. We'll never do it.
If you want to destroy your company as quick as possible,
set
hire
it
people
ablaze.
not on LinkedIn. That's it. If you want your company to be successful and make money, what do they need to do?
Hire from LinkedIn.
That's right. LinkedIn is not just another job board.
No.
It's
much more.
It's the nectar of success, if you will, because it helps you hire professionals that you can't hire anywhere else. Because only good employees come from LinkedIn.
Responsible.
That's it. I don't know how that worked out, but that's just where we are today. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Charlie5, when you look at the other 4 players as we kind of rank them as far as impact of these transfer defensive linemen, we're including Kon Crawford in this. I think Keyron is 2.
Has to be.
Has to be 2. And the only reason he's not 1 is because of total snaps, I'm thinking.
Sure.
But as far as what Durkin is going to want to do on third down and in passing situations on this defense, he has the potential to change what they do defensively more than any other transfer they've had on the defensive side of the football. And it sounds a little drastic when I say it, but I actually don't think it is. Him and McLeod, they've got a chance, dude. They've got a chance to be something really special and really dynamic. And I just think that this guy is going to, from like a percentage standpoint, as far as how, I don't think he's going to have, the most pass rushing attempts on this team by any stretch of the imagination. But I think his efficiency in pursuing the quarterback is going to be among the best in the SEC.
Sure. And even if it's not so much from him and McLeod being on the field at the same time, I think McLeod is going to be an absolute torpedo missile all year. I mean, he's dropping back in coverage in A-Day, but he has been bit by the injury bug quite a bit in his career. Like, just not having to go, being able to turn McLeod loose 100% and say, go get it. And if something happens, we got a good backup. We got somebody that can back you up. What does that do? Like, to give him the green light to just go get after it instead of trying to do things to protect him, you can just pull the trigger and let him go. And then if we get in a situation where both of those guys are on the field at the same time rushing the passer, like, let's just meet in the middle. It's going to be he has a lot of versatility to his game. He's very explosive. He seemed to just make, like you said, not a lot of snaps, but every time he got a snap, it was either going to be a tackle for loss, a quarterback hurry, a fumble recovery. Something big was going to happen, like Trey Blackman back in the day. Like, you couldn't put him in the game for extended period of times, but when you got him on the field, something crazy was going to happen. I feel like Kon Crawford could have that kind of impact. And not only from him being on the field, but just him being in the lineup allows Jalen McLeod to just pin his ears back and get after it. And that fires me up because there's really nothing behind him. It's freshmen, which there's some talented dudes, but like, do you want an 18-year-old, like you said, being your go-to guy in pass rushing situations right off the bat? And I don't think that's the answer.
Yeah. I mean, I feel a lot better about Jamonta Waller being your third edge guy than your second. And that has everything to do with just experience. And halfway through the season, Waller may be ready, but Keyron gives you that ability to not have to play him too early. And the same way, like, it's not super clear what's happening behind Keldrick Falk at defensive end. We've all kind of are assuming that it's a Amaris Williams. But to me, I kind of wonder, like, if the addition of Kon Crawford allows you to do more with that. What if Williams doesn't come on quick enough and they say, okay, in third down situations, like, we do need to play 2 buck guys, two edge rushers, and just kind of hope that we can do enough with the linebackers and the interior defensive line to keep the running game at bay and, not give up 8-yard runs on third down or something like that. Yeah. I do wonder if that is on the table, and it may be game plan specific. We'll see. But if that's the case, there's a chance Crawford could play a lot more than we expect him to.
100%. And I don't know that Auburn's had 2 rush-ins like that in a long time that have the talent to be able to get back there and make plays, and then to be able to have some scenarios where they could possibly play on the field at the same time. I'm trying to think, like, who would be the 2 defensive ends like that you could think of.
Would you rather have McLeod and Crawford, or I'm blanking on his name? Seahawks. Plays for the Seahawks. He's drafted last year. My goodness.
Derek Hall. Yeah.
Derek Hall and Ekuliota. Like, which two would you rather have?
That's tough because it's a little bit of a different, maybe the schemes are a little bit different, but I think from the speed aspect, I think I take the two guys we have, now. I think from a speed perspective, for sure. I think you take McLeod and Crawford. Those dudes were great.
Who else was there when Jeff Holland was here? Who was on the other side of him?
It's hard to remember. I can't really remember. I don't feel like it was anybody that was super.
No, he got too many sacks for it to be somebody else. Yeah.
I remember Stanley McClover and Quentin Groves. Those two guys.
Well, that's been a minute.
Now, that was a true like 4-3 type system. But those were two pretty nasty ends that could get after you. And I'm not saying they're going to be in that stratosphere because they're a little bit smaller. They're more linebacker type. But the way this system is run, they could have a similar type impact. At times, not full time. Like those guys were on the field the whole time. This is, more specialized, but still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the fact that you have the upside of Jamonta Waller right behind him is exciting.
God.
So yeah, I think Keyron Crawford can change the defense with what he can bring to the table. As we rank these, Philip Blidi, Crawford 2, we decided to go with Isaiah Raikes 3. And I think some of this has to do with projected total snaps played, as well as positional versatility, as well as he played for DJ Durkin literally last year. and I think that's valuable too. The battle between him and Jason Jones at that nose guard spot is going to be fascinating. It's probably going to be the one. Is that the? It's one of the most interesting position battles going into fall. It will be.
I would say so.
Top 2 or 3.
We got to be able to get more snap. He's got to get his snap ability to take more snaps up. So otherwise,
how many do you want him taking? Like, serious question. How much do you want that to go up?
I mean, I would think he's good enough. He's good enough, and he can make enough of an impact that I'd love for him to play at least half the snaps on defense. You got to imagine, how many are going to be third and passing type scenarios where he'll have to come off, but like early game stuff. He is one of the better in the country run stuffing true nose tackles. Like, when you're playing your Georgias and when you're playing your teams that like to pound it and control the line of scrimmage, like he's one you got to have in there. Mm-hmm. So you need him to be able to play more than, 15 to 20 snaps a game, which I think is about what his average was at Texas A&M last year.
Yeah, so in 22, so not last year, 2 years ago, he had 2 that were in the teens, 13, 11, and 19. Oh, and 16. And then all the other ones were 20 or 30. And he had a 40 snap game as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So yeah, he played 400 snaps in 22. He played 300 snaps last year. But he had several games where he played, high 20s and snaps. And that's kind of where I want him to be.
Me too. Right around 30.
Yeah. And a fresh Raikes and a fresh Jason Jones. I'm fine with that.
Tagging in.
Yeah. And I don't really care the order. I don't care the order. So to me, I like that. I don't think he needs many more snaps than that.
No, that's what I was hoping for. If he could be in the 30s, mid 30s, something like that. I think that's because you can't really have him. You don't really want him out there on third down. Like you got to be able to get him out of there and get a little bit more speed because he's really an early down type guy. And again, he's one of the best.
A lot of these guys I don't love on third down.
Yeah, but he's one of the best early down guys in the country from a PFF standpoint, as far as stuff in the run, negate negative plays, things of that nature. He's one of the best in the country. So if you can get 30 to 35 snaps a game out of that, and then he give you that same level of production, again, he's another guy not going to show up a lot in the stat column, but you got multiple guys that can free up your playmakers to be able to do things, and he's one of the best.
A teaser into next week. I'm pre-recording a bunch of shows because I'm going to be out of the country next week, but did a crossover with Andrew Stefaniak of Locked On Aggies.
Yeah.
And we talked about how like we're stealing all their players, which he really took pretty well. But I brought up Isaiah Raikes and he's like, yeah, like we didn't really lose that much. Like, guys like that. And like, no, this guy being a part of your rotation is what was the mismatch for Texas A&M. And now the fact that Auburn is having this, I mean, remember that Auburn A&M game last year? We left it. It's like, we are not there in the trenches. We are not there. But all of a sudden, it's like we're asking some of these guys to play the same role that they played for the, a team where we're like, we're not quite there yet. It's these types of dudes that are getting us closer to where we need to be in the trenches. And so the fact that we're having this conversation where Raikes and Jason, and we'll see what, Malik Blockton and Zacchaeus Walker and some of these other guys can do as far as, 20, 30 snaps a game. The rotation is just so much better than it has been from a depth standpoint. So I think that's important. And depth is crucial with the last two guys that we're going to discuss that Auburn added via the portal this offseason on the defensive line. Coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Yahoo Finance. Oh. Can you imagine using any app to track your investing other than Yahoo Finance?
I mean, I can't. I refuse to.
Yeah. Real talk. I use Yahoo Finance every day. I use it every day. I pull it up. You can have your like news is catered to like what your investments are in, which is pretty cool. And so everything it shows you, it actually is like, oh, this is impacting my life, and here's how. So for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. So whether you're a seasoned investor or you're looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you the tools and data you need in one place. With a community of over 90 million users each month, I'm one of them. Their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor. YahooFinance.com. YahooFinance.com. Yes, that is YahooFinance.com. Final two guys that Auburn has added as we rank these: Blidi, Keyron Crawford, Isaiah Raikes. 4, I've got Gage Keys. And it's wild. It's wild. Borderline disrespectful to Gage Keys. I'll say it. But I feel like we made a good case for everybody above him. But this is a dude who came on towards the end of spring, and it's like, yeah, Gage Keys is getting it done. The transfer from Kansas is getting it done.
He was our first defensive lineman. He may have been the first portal edition of the whole thing. Robert Lewis may have been first, but he was one of the first. I think he was the first defensive lineman. I think he was before Trill, for sure.
So too.
Yeah,
I think he was too. Yeah. And this is a guy who started at 8A, had a really solid last 2 or 3 weeks of spring. And the fact that, okay, Auburn continued to add guys on the defensive line. I hate putting him so low, honestly, because he deserves to be higher. But I think the 3 guys coming in are just, they're a big deal. So as far as impact in 2024, like I think Keys is 4th behind these other 3 guys, which says, wow, props to this coaching staff for what they brought in.
I think you could make an argument that he could be higher, and mostly just because I think he's mega versatile. I think he could play all 3 positions in certain situations across the line. He's long and athletic, and I think he got better last year as the season went on, and he's got multiple years left to play. I like him, and I think I could probably make an argument for him to be maybe even up towards definitely 3, maybe even in the 2 range, depending on how you look at how much you weigh Keyron Crawford. But I still like the addition of Gage. I think he's going to be first off the bench, and he's got versatility that he can play. He can back up Keldrick Falk. He can back up Philip Blidi. And in the right situation, he probably could back up even Jason Jones. He's just big, 6'5", right at 300 pounds. And again, long and athletic, and he can just do a lot of different things. I think that's why he worked his way up into the defensive starting rotation for spring. So, I mean, that's kind of fun. Hey, the number 4 guy that we have on this list was starting in the spring. So
insane.
That's your first guy off the bench.
And I think I told this story the day after when we were reacting to like the open practice window, but I was standing by the defensive lineman watching them. And I saw Keys on the back of his jersey, and just with his body type, I mean, he looked lean. I'm like, oh, the linebackers must be over here too. That's Austin Keys. I'm like, no, that was Gage Keys. So it wouldn't shock me if he took a step forward as a pass rusher. We talked about, what they're going to do with the interior D line on 3rd down. Gage Keys may be the answer to that.
He could
and obviously, if that is the answer to that, we have him too low.
I
we have
agree.
them too low. We may have to do low regardless.
It's just a little bit unknown about how the different scenarios and different rotations and line substitution packages you can see. But for right now, I'm okay with him at 4.
Yeah, I almost want to switch him to 3, but I'm not going to do it. All right, number 5 is the last guy, Trill Carter, who once again, this doesn't mean we're anti-Trill Carter. It's just these other 4 guys I think are going to make a larger impact on this. Trill Carter was, rotation piece in Texas, a playoff team from a year ago. And this once again goes back to what Auburn has done on the defensive front, talking about, Raikes being a rotational piece or starter or a guy who plays about half of the snaps on defense. This is a different defensive line room than what we've seen at Auburn over the past few years. It's experienced. It's a bunch of veterans. It's dudes who have done this for a long time. And the depth is there. The depth is there at every spot with the exception of defensive end, depending on how you look at it. But to me, this is a great spot for them to be in. The fact that we've kind of made a case here that Trill Carter is the 5th of 5 additions on the defensive line via the portal this offseason. Wow. I mean, that should make you feel better as an Auburn fan.
Yeah, I mean, he was good at Texas, but he was a Big Ten honorable mention at Minnesota. So I think we brought him in to be the guy right beside Jason Jones to right out of the portal, like to start off with. He's sort of in that Isaiah Raikes mold of a little bit not quite as tall, but wide, big body, block eater type player. And then so he had a really good spring as well. He got a lot of starting reps as well. And then you bring in these other guys. And I think where I go with Trill is he's a great player at what he does, but I don't think he's mega versatile. I don't think he's quite as versatile as like a Gage Keys or, obviously Keyron Crawford or Philip Blidi. I think he's going to be kind of sort of in the Isaiah Raikes mold. They're kind of got one job and they're both pretty good at it. And they're going to be in there situationally and help other dudes make plays. And I don't know. For him to be number 5 again, what a good spot you're in.
Yeah, it just says a lot about what this offseason has been for Auburn. So let us know your rankings down below. Genuinely curious. You can let us either know on YouTube or on social media or in the Locked On Auburn Discord. But our order: Blidi, Crawford, Raikes, Keys, and Carter. Charlie5, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter at _Charlie_5 in the Locked On Auburn Discord every single day, or Tuesdays and Thursdays on the Top Button Podcast.
Please like the video. Please subscribe. We will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.